Hare Krishna. Alright, welcome to Monday morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. We are reading from the 4th canto, chapter 25, verse number 20. So please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Daivim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. So text 20. Yadrichayagatam tatra Dadarsha Pramadottamam Bhrityairdashabhirayantim Ekaika Shatanayakai Yadrichayagatam tatra Dadarsha Pramadottamam Bhrityairdashabhirayantim Ekaika Shatanayakai. Yadrichayagatam tatra Ekaika Satanayaki Yadrichayagatam tatra Tatarsha Pramadottamam Bhrityairdashabhirayantim Ekaika Shatanayakai. Word for word. Yadruchaya. All of a sudden. Without engagement. Agatam. Arrived. Tatra. There. Dadarsha. He saw. Pramada, one woman. Uttamam, very beautiful. Vidyahi, surrounded by servants. Dashabhi, 10. Ayantim, coming forward. Eka eka, each one of them. Shatta, of hundreds. Nayakai, the leaders. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation, please repeat after me. While wandering here and there, in that wonderful garden, King Purañjana suddenly came in contact with a very beautiful woman who was walking there without any engagement. She had 10 servants with her, and each servant had hundreds of wives accompanying him. Purport. The body has already been compared to a beautiful garden. During youth, the sex impulse is awakened, and the intelligence, according to one's imagination, is prone to contact the opposite sex. In youth, a man or woman is in search of the opposite sex by intelligence or imagination, if not directly. The intelligence influences the mind, and the mind controls the 10 senses. 5 of these senses gather knowledge, and 5 work directly. Each sense has many desires to be fulfilled. This is the position of the body and the owner of the body, Purañjana, who is within the body. Okay. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kedamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyaham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Vishnu Hare Krishna. I'll just read the translation once more. While wandering here and there in that wonderful garden, King Purañjana suddenly came in contact with a very beautiful woman who was walking there without any engagement. She had 10 servants with her, and each servant had hundreds of wives accompanying him. So this chapter we're reading at the moment, I heard Maharaj just say last night that actually this is a very powerful section of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Like he really meant it when he said it as well. It wasn't just, casually glorifying the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a really powerful chapter. And I remember when I was reading it, it was nice. Every verse you get, you kind of forget what's going on because there's so many hidden meanings in everything that's happening. Narad Muni is very expert, right? He is like the acharya. He's like the embodiment of preaching. Everywhere he goes, so many devotees just appear, and the most like unexpected people as well, right? Mrigari the hunter, leaving half-dead animals everywhere he goes in the forest. Narad Muni, he comes and just says a few words to him, and immediately he's the most ahimsa person there is. Scared to even step over an ant. This is the power of the acharya or the spiritual master. But Narad Muni especially, like he just has that magic touch. Similarly, I was just recently reading in the 7th canto, he was giving so many instructions to Yudhishthira Maharaj. Basically the whole 7th canto is just Narad Muni preaching to Yudhishthira Maharaj, such an exalted person. And even he is listening with rapt attention to Narad Muni. So, yeah, it's not something ordinary that we can just like understand by our own intelligence. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyas chasmi tatvataha. One who engages in devotional service, Krishna reveals the knowledge they need. Only by devotional service can one actually understand Krishna. And hearing from a saintly person is itself bhakti, devotional service. So all of us are very fortunate today. I mean, I'm not a saintly person, but we're hearing from Srila Prabhupada. So this is a nice opportunity for me to purify myself, to try and please my spiritual master by attending Srimad Bhagavatam class. And I think all of us are getting that opportunity as well, given by Srila Prabhupada. So I also, before I start going any further, just request everyone that I can speak something accurate to this. I don't want to dishonor Narad Muni and what he's teaching, and nor do I want to dishonor Srila Prabhupada or any of you. So please pray that I can speak correctly today and please my own spiritual master. But yeah, very elaborate what Narad Muni is describing. But fortunately for us, we have the Bhakti Vedanta purports. So every verse that comes in this chapter, Srila Prabhupada is explaining what's actually being referred to here. And the funny thing is that immediately after this, then Narad Muni himself also explains. He re-recites the whole story with the explanation of the deeper meaning. Because King Prachina Barishat, who is being taught here himself, as we would struggle to have followed hearing it the first time without the Bhaktivedanta purports. So we really can get it drilled in. I think the main point of explaining all of that is that we shouldn't misunderstand that, we're not just talking about like the role of a woman in a Vedic society. We're not just talking about lusty desires, but we're also talking about the intelligence, which is in everyone, right? Every single devotee is dealing with intelligence which has been contaminated by contact with the material nature. So our intelligence has become material intelligence. I'm not sure, I think I heard it from His Grace Radhesham Prabhu. He said that there is this example that the Atma is like the husband, and the intelligence or the buddhi is like the wife. And so if the Atma is married to a good intelligence, strong intelligence, then the whole family flourishes. Like, actually the spiritual success of the family hinges on the wife, on the intelligence. But if that intelligence is not fixed and not loyal to the right, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Bandhur Atmatmanas Tasya, that the mind can be the best of friends or the worst of enemies. But for one who has subdued the mind is a friend. For one who has no control over the mind, who is being controlled by the mind has become the worst enemy. I recently read in the 8th canto, Shukadev Goswami, he calls Parikshit Maharaj Arindama. There wasn't like a direct translation of that. I think Ari means one who kills or defeats or subdues, right? Like Kamsa Ari, name of Krishna, one who defeats Kamsa. So he's referring to Parikshit Maharaj here, Prabhupada explains, as the one who has subdued all of his enemies. But interestingly, in the purport, Prabhupada explains that title given by Shukadev Goswami, saying that Parikshit Maharaj, when he was acting as a king, a royal king, he was very successful, effective at taking down his political opponents. He was a proper Kshatriya king, right? But then when we see that the son of the Brahmana who curses Parikshit Maharaj, the way he deals with that, because he had subdued all the enemies in his own heart, lust, anger, greed, envy, hate, when he was cursed by this Brahmana kind of, not having done anything particularly wrong, or maybe it was a little bit misconstrued, instead of reacting, or he was completely in his power to counter curse, or to deal with that situation in his own hands, but instead he just completely accepted it, and that's because he had conquered the enemies in his own heart. Prabhupada was explaining. So one who has subdued their enemies is one who has controlled the mind, and we hear that Yudhishthira Maharaj is known as Ajata Shatru, one who has no enemies. The best way to defeat your enemies is to have no enemies at the first place. Even, the Kauravas, so much envy, constantly like trying to create difficulty in the life of the Pandavas. But Yudhishthira Maharaj never created any enmity in his heart towards them. And this is a quality of a Brahmana or a Vaishnava, right? Titikshava, Karunika, Suhrada Sarvadehina, Ajata Shatravaha Shanta. So these are the 6 qualities of a Brahmana, or sadhu. Sadhava, sadhu bhushana, the ornaments that a Brahmana wears. So having no enemies, we should be observing this in our lives. If someone is causing us trouble and we don't like that person and we don't want them around, we should immediately realize that we are no longer a qualified Vaishnava. We failed in our duty as a Vaishnava. So a Vaishnava has no enemies, and Parikshit Maharaj as well has subdued all of his enemies in his own heart, so that getting this curse, he didn't create a big ordeal out of it. Instead, he went closer to Krishna, much closer, much quicker. And that's the important part here that we'll be discussing a little bit. I thought we could pull some examples of different women from Shastra, from our Parampara maybe, who exemplify that kind of intelligence that one should be trying to cultivate. By their behavior, they bring the husband closer to Krishna, right? It's quite interesting actually, like in modern Western culture, the idea of a woman being the servant of the husband is very bad. You don't even want to say it out loud, because externally, materially, the man is very, very much advantaged. They get access to all of this title, all the wealth is in their name. They're the one that goes out and gets to do all the fun stuff in society. The woman stays home and just has to cook. This is like the conception that we have in the Western world. But interestingly, as Vaishnavas, what's the goal of Gaudiya Vaishnavism? To become a servant. And not just a servant of Krishna, but the servant of Krishna. So a woman's actually much more spiritually advanced if you look at her position in society, because naturally from the very beginning she's trained to serve the servant. And for a man that's very difficult. They have so much ego because they're trying to be the breadwinner. They have no idea how to just humble themselves and be the servant day in and day out. So I thought one example that first came to mind for me was Mother Devahuti. I can even, maybe we just read a little bit from that chapter. Devahuti's lamentation. So Maitreya says that after the departure of her parents, the chaste woman Devahuti who could understand the desires of her husband, served him constantly with great love, as Bhavani, the wife of Lord Shiva, serves her husband. O Vidura, Devahuti served her husband with intimacy and great respect, with control of the senses, with love and with sweet words. Right, so we can see that in this verse today, the beautiful woman, she doesn't have any engagement, so she's, in that sense, she's like an unmarried woman. But she does have 10 servants, and those servants have thousands of wives, hundreds of wives accompanying them. So Prabhupada explains here the 10 senses which accompany the mind and the intelligence. Right? When we come to the material world, we get a sort of package deal. We get like a spacesuit that we can move around the material world in. You get this ego, first of all. It's like the first layer we put on. I am not a servant of Krishna. I am this body. That is the mantra of the material world. And with that comes the material intelligence. So I'm this body. That means I'm going to die one day. And if I'm going to die, I need to enjoy it quickly. Otherwise I'm going to be really scared and upset and anxious and full of anxiety, right? Kunta. Not Vaikunta, but Kunta. So we cover ourselves with this materialistic intelligence, which is through the mind. I heard, again, Radheshyam Prabhu explain that the 5 working senses are pushed by the prana. So the life air in every body, this will come a bit later as well in this chapter, we'll hear about the prana. It's often represented by a snake. If you look at like Kundalini Yoga, at the base of the spine where the prana rises, because a snake, they can subsist only on air. So I think that's like potentially part of the reason. The prana is like this force which pushes the 5 karma indriyas, so the 5 working senses. Does anyone want to list off a couple of the working senses? Eyes? No, I think that's Gyanindriya. Hands, legs, mouth, tongue for speaking, not for tasting, but for acting, right? Speaking. Yeah, evacuating organ for passing stool, and the genitals, right, for passing urine or whatever else, activities. So the 5 working senses are activated, they're pushed, stimulated by the prana, the life air. So you can see that this process of pranayama, controlling the life air, is very effective for controlling these sense organs. And you can see that sometimes we notice this, right, like if we haven't slept properly, or if we're really tense and angry and anxious, our breathing changes. It'll be quick and we can't take a full breath. It's like there's something holding our chest, right? This affects our ability to use our karmendriyas, and it might even stimulate them in a way where they want to do things that our intelligence doesn't want to do, right? So if we can work with that knowledge, and try and cultivate a steady prana through devotional service, we can also subdue these working senses. And then the intelligence uses the mind to work through the gyanindriyas and receive knowledge. So the 5 gyanindriyas are eyes, nose, tongue, sense of touch, and hearing. Yeah. So these are the 10 servants of the intelligence, which is the woman who is wandering here in this beautiful garden of the body. So here we're hearing that Mother Devahuti, with great control of those senses, with love and with sweet words, served her husband. Working sanely and diligently, she pleased her very powerful husband, giving up all lust, pride, envy, greed, sinful activities, and vanity. The daughter of Manu, who was fully devoted to her husband, looked upon him as greater than even Providence. Thus she expected great blessings from him. Having served him for a long time, she grew weak and emaciated due to her religious observances. Right, so if we're following with this example of the wife representing the intelligence, Mother Devahuti is undergoing so much austerity alongside her husband, right? And having done so, she's becoming weak and emaciated. This is like through the austerity, the intelligence is becoming kind of controlled or subdued in that sense. Seeing her condition, Kardama, the foremost of celestial sages, was overcome with compassion and spoke to her in a voice choked with great love. Kardama Muni said, "O respectful daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, today I am very much pleased with you for your great devotion and most excellent loving service. Since the body is so dear to embodied beings, I am astonished that you have neglected your own body to use it on my behalf. I have achieved the blessings of the Lord in discharging my own religious life of austerity, meditation and Krishna consciousness. Although you have not yet experienced those achievements, which are free from fear and lamentation, I shall offer them all to you because you are engaged in my service." So this is the point, right, of being a Gaudiya Vaishnava, being following in the mood of Mahaprabhu and the six Goswamis, being a Rupa Nuga, right? Following in this mood of being the servant of the servant of the servant. Just by a little bit of humility, we can short circuit so much extraneous endeavor, right? So much tapasya. It's said that pantastu koti shatavatsara sampragamyo vayora tapi manaso muni pungavanam sopyasti yat prapadasim nyavachintya tatve govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. Lord Brahma says that he worships that Supreme Lord Govinda who is so easily achieved by devotional service, right? The yogis who are undergoing such great austerities and trying to control the life airs, right? For many, many thousands of births have to go to such austerities, and Kardama Muni is one example of that. But he's already achieved all of these results, and so quickly, Mother Devahudi, just by serving him for one short lifetime, she receives all of those benefits from him. So just by humbling ourselves and becoming a servant of a great saintly person or of our spiritual master, so quickly we can achieve all of the results of devotional service. Another example I was thinking of was from Dhruv Maharaj, pastime. We hear about King Uttanapad, Maharaj Uttanapad, having two wives. So I guess you've kind of got two different examples of different types of intelligence here. And Sunidhi, right? Nidhi meaning piety, right, I think, or good moral character. So Sunidhi is that kind of intelligence which is engaging us in sattvic activities, devotional service. Whereas Suniti is Suruchi, right? Yeah. Ruchi means like attractiveness or something. So she is that intelligence which is trying to allure us into the material enjoyment. And if you look at the effect that these two mothers had on the family, Suruchi, with the pride that she had in her heart from that attractive quality, she sent one of the sons of the king into the forest, right? By her activity, her enviousness. In contrast to Nidhi, right? She engaged that same son in so quickly achieving darshan of the Supreme Lord. So these are the two different effects that can come from different types of intelligence. Similarly, we hear in the Ramayana that, is it Kaikeyi, the wife of Dasharath Maharaj, right? She had one servant, one maid servant, Mantra. Interesting that her name is Mantra, right? We hear in that meditation book that mantra means, mana means mind, trayate is to control, subdue. As we were talking about, Pariksha Maharaj, expert at controlling these enemies, but mantra is quite the opposite. She is that one wandering sense that Krishna refers to, right? Even great saintly persons, they can lose control of the mind just by one sense wandering freely, roaming free. So if the servants of the intelligence of the wife are the senses, this mantra, just by speaking into the ear of Mother Kaikeyi, she convinced her to become polluted by these material qualities, right? Envy, pride. And then the Supreme Lord is banished from the house of Dasharath Maharaj, the husband. So Krishna is in everyone's heart, right? But if we give in to this materialistic intelligence, or if we let our senses roam freely, they will also capture our spiritual intelligence. And what is the result of that? I mean, Krishna is always there in everyone's heart, but when one becomes absorbed in material nature, right, Krishna steps back and he lets us engage in fulfilling those desires. So in that way, Lord Ramachandra leaves, right, Ayodhya. One other example, I was recently just reading the churning of the milk ocean. Who better than Lakshmi Devi herself to understand the exalted qualities of a woman in Krishna consciousness. Lakshmi Devi, yeah, it was really amazing actually getting to hear like the appearance story of, Mother Lakshmi. I didn't realize that we get to read about all of this in Srimad Bhagavatam. I'll just read a couple of verses. Then there appeared the goddess of fortune, Rama, who was absolutely dedicated to being enjoyed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She appeared like electricity surpassing the lightning that might illuminate a marble mountain. Wow. Because of her exquisite beauty, her bodily features, her youth, her complexion, and her glories, everyone, including the demigods, the demons, and the human beings, desired her. They were attracted because she is the source of all opulences. The King of Heaven, so we hear, right, that fame or opulence is like an unmarried girl, an unmarried woman. Chanchala is the word sometimes given to Lakshmi Devi, that she is flickering. She is always difficult to capture, right, for the living being. But interestingly, in this pastime we hear that the Supreme Lord, by his detachment from material nature, right, we'll hear actually, just quickly I'll explain. So everyone is basically doing Abhishek and welcoming this Supreme Shakti. The King of Heaven, Indra, brought a suitable sitting place for the Goddess of Fortune. All the rivers of sacred water, such as the Ganges and Yamuna, personified themselves, and each of them brought pure water in golden water pots for Mother Lakshmi, the Goddess of Fortune. The land became a person and collected all the drugs and herbs needed for installing the deity. The cows delivered 5 products, namely milk, yogurt, ghee, urine, and cow dung. And spring personified collected everything produced in spring during the months of Chaitra and Vaishaka. So everyone present is engaging in worshipping this Lakshmi Devi. And then thereafter, Mother Lakshmi, the Goddess of Fortune, having been properly celebrated with an auspicious ritualistic ceremony, began moving about, holding in her hand a garland of lotus flowers, which were surrounded by humming bumblebees. Smiling with shyness, her cheeks decorated by her earrings, she looked extremely beautiful. So now Lakshmi Devi is looking for her husband. And out of everyone that's assembled there at the churning of the milk ocean, she's walking around to find, because she has just taken birth from the milk ocean, except eternally she resides on the chest of Vishnu or Narayan. So now she's looking for that place that she can immediately return to, the only shelter that she has, right? The Goddess of Fortune, examining the assembly, thought in this way: someone who has undergone great austerity has not yet conquered anger. Someone possesses knowledge, but he has not conquered material desires. Someone is a very great personality, but he cannot conquer lusty desires. Even a great personality depends on something else. How then can he be the supreme controller? Someone may possess full knowledge of religion, but still not be kind to all living entities. In someone, whether human or demigod, there may be renunciation, but that is not the cause of liberation. Someone may possess great power and yet be unable to check the power of eternal time. Someone else may have renounced attachment to the material world, yet he cannot compare to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, no one is completely freed from the influence of the material modes. Someone may have longevity, but not have auspicious or good behavior. Someone may have both auspiciousness and good behavior, but their duration of life is not fixed. Although such demigods as Lord Shiva have eternal life, they have inauspicious habits like living in crematoriums. And even if others are well qualified in all respects, they are not devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Shukadev Goswami explains that in this way, after full deliberation, the Goddess of Fortune accepted Mukunda as her husband, because although he is independent and not in want of her, he possesses all transcendental qualities and mystic powers, and is therefore the most desirable. I think I remember when His Holiness Swami Bhagavan Keshava Swami Maharaj was here, he was explaining that idea of fame, right? Everyone's looking for that fame, but when you seek it like an unmarried woman, it kind of goes the other way. But for that aloof person who's not interested, she's attracted. So in the same way, Lakshmi Devi, who is the reservoir of all opulences, is only attracted by that one person in all of creation who is aloof from enjoying these material qualities. So she Lord Narayan as her husband. And this shows the chastity of Lakshmi Devi. She is analyzing everyone that could possibly be available, and she only wants the Supreme Lord. So that kind of intelligence, which is fixed at the lotus feet of Krishna, is the right kind of intelligence for us. And it's explained, and Prabhupada says in one of those purports, that the reason Lakshmi Devi decides to reside on the chest of Lord Vishnu is because then she can have darshan of all of the devotees who come to serve him, and she can bestow her mercy onto them. Right? So it's explained that a devotee also, they receive all of these opulences, and they receive these opulences differently to those received by karmis, because for a karmi, they might work extremely hard to get some wealth or some fame or something, but it's temporary. But the opulences in the Supreme Lord are eternal. So for a devotee who is engaged in always serving the lotus feet of Krishna, all of those opulences become manifest. Yes. So, I think I was going to say something else, but I can't really remember. We also see like an interesting example if you look to Vrindavan, right? Even the gopis there, completely fixed and absorbed in Krishna, except Krishna isn't their husband, right? They're so attached to Krishna, completely one-pointed, except their husband is at home, and they're constantly trying to have the association of Krishna. So this is kind of like a different example. And I think we can only really understand that when we look to the Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There's one instruction that Mahaprabhu gives to Rupa and Sanatan Goswami. When they, after being kind of entrapped in their roles as servant of Nawab Hussain Shah, the Muslim kind of king of where they were staying, and they were working as government officials, but they were unable to, despite their such intense love and separation from Mahaprabhu, they were unable to practice that devotion openly because of their position as Muslim government officials. They even had to accept Muslim names, right? Dabir Khas and Sakar Malik. So they were constantly writing letters to Mahaprabhu, asking him, when can we see you? How can we do this? How can we continue our lives? And they would express this love in separation until they met finally with Mahaprabhu in Benares? I can't remember. Rupa and Sanatan, when they first met Mahaprabhu, he came and he basically replied to all of their letters, or he explained that I had sent this response to you, that simply if you follow in the footsteps of that woman who does her household duties more sincerely, more attentively, because she is constantly engaged in the thought of her paramour, right, her extramarital affair. If you can just continue like that, right, in this situation, then very soon, your heart's desires will be fulfilled. You'll be united with Krishna, and this is also a very powerful way for us to engage our intelligence in Krishna consciousness, right? If we constantly remember Krishna in that mood of loving separation, And if we perform our duties externally as required, um, even more so, more attentively, um, we can advance much, much quicker. And so this is a very powerful use of our intelligence, engaging that intelligence in devotional service. All right, I think I can finish there. If there's any corrections or anything anyone wants to add, we can finish up there. Batu Jujaraj Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, that's a good question. It is kind of related to the class. Um, I was hearing from Radhesham Prabhu again. He was giving the example of different ways of controlling the mind. And for me, memorizing shlokas is like the best way to control the mind. Because he was explaining this example of, all of us are devotees. We all have our kind of shelter where we can be safe from Maya, in a sense. We're never safe from Maya, but as brahmacharis, we're staying in the temple. As grahastas, your home is a temple. The home of the devotee is a very sacred place. And naturally you feel safe there. You might go out. I remember when I was still finishing my degree, I would be leaving the temple, at 8 in the morning, backpack with the hat on, going in. I'm ready for the day. Did like half of the morning program, feeling good. And then immediately you just get like smacked across the face. Bus comes past with a big sign, come and enjoy this, and then you get to uni and there's a cafe bellowing out coffee and meat, and you're like, oh, you have to hold your nose, and then people will come talk to you about all kinds of things, but you have to be like sociable. You can't just be like, oh, I only talk about Krishna, sorry. So yeah, it's very difficult actually. As we were saying, performing those material duties but engaging our mind always in Krishna. So Radhesham Prabhu was saying that it's like at home we're like at the zoo. We have this uncontrollable, we have Maya, right, living with us in our minds. He was giving the example of Durga Devi. She rides on a tiger, right, and she's carrying the living being, and she's got her trident, like right in the heart of that living being. And so we're living at home with Durga, right, with that material nature inside of us, right, these enemies internally that we need to subdue. And it's like a wild tiger. So he gave the example of at a zoo. You keep the tiger in a cage, So the cage for us is like our attending the morning program, chanting 16 rounds, associating with devotees, taking prasad. If we just do these things, it's very, just eating prasad, singing and dancing, it's pretty easy. But that tiger can be tamed, it can be caged up. So at home we can be safe. And he said sometimes you might have a crazy gatekeeper who comes along and says like, hey, should I open the cage today? Should we open the door? And that can be like someone comes and just gives you some really like opulent prasadam or something, or I don't know, everyone has their own weakness that stimulates the senses, and we kind of disguise it as devotional service, right? So that is like the crazy gatekeeper who comes and tries to let the tiger out the cage. So we do need to be careful of that guy as well. But when we go outside, if you've seen like on safaris, you can't cage up all the animals in the wild, right? So they cage up themselves. You put a big glass shield around the safari car, and so that cage that we put on when we go outside is like associating internally with the Vaishnavas, with the Shastra, with the spiritual master. So internally you can remember those devotees, who give you shelter. You can remember nice times that you've had with devotees. You can remember, but when we have darshan in the morning, we shouldn't just be looking right now. We should be thinking, for the rest of the day, I'm not going to have this very, very rare opportunity to see the Supreme Lord face to face. So right now I'm going to make a conscious effort to remember like every detail of Krishna, whatever he's wearing today, so that for the rest of the day I can have darshan. If we do that when we go out, we've got that protection, we've got that shield. Remembering shlokas is another part of that. if you have that motivation to protect yourself from Maya, remembering shlokas is easy, you know. It's not like a chore so that you can give a nice class and impress someone, you know. It's something that you have to do to survive in Krishna consciousness. So you go out in the day and you're associating with the Shastras because you're remembering, you know, that shloka that you learnt last night before bed. Or you're remembering the instructions of the spiritual master, right? The Vani of the spiritual master is more important, right? Is more potent than the Vapu, the personal association. So when we go out into the material world performing our material duties, we can give ourselves that protection by associating with Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, and Sri Sri Radha Gopinath by constantly engaging our mind and remembering them. We can carry a picture of Radha Gopinath. We can carry books with us as well. It helps having them around. It feels, you get a bit more strength. And where possible, you can try and stay in association with devotees. If you can't work with devotees, you can call them in your lunch break or something like that. This gives us a lot of protection. If you can do this, you'll save yourself like so much struggle. Like we can do everything perfectly in the morning, and then we go out and we do all nonsense during the day. Basically, the next morning we have to start again from zero. You're trying to start a fire, right? That example, and then you're getting some smoke, and then you just suddenly pour a bunch of water on it, and you have to start. I mean, starting all over again is really difficult because now it's wet. You know, like how am I going to start a fire with wet wood? So if we can protect ourselves not just in the morning but throughout the whole day, the next day when we sit down to chant, it will be very different. Like it's not like just starting all over again. Maybe like in the last round we can get a little bit of taste from the holy name. But if the whole day we're protecting that smoke, which is we've started to ignite in the morning, then the next day when we keep chanting, sparks might start coming. Like we might actually get sparks for once. And if we can keep going like that, more and more sparks, we can start a big flame. Then when we go out, we'll set the whole world on fire with Krishna consciousness. So that would be nice, yeah. Other than that, Ganesham Prabhu gives a lot of really good tips on shlokas. I always mess up. I can remember slokas because of this, but I can't remember what he specifically said. It was something like 3 R's. Like if you repeat when you're reading it, just again and again and again, just hammer it in, repeat. And then if you can recite it out loud, like the louder that you recite a shloka, the quicker you'll memorize it. And then if you revise, so the next week when you're learning new shlokas, just quickly go over the ones you did last week. And don't worry too much about if they stick or not. Like if you just keep memorizing shlokas, I've forgotten like 10 times as many shlokas as I've memorized. But if you just keep on, you know, putting more and more in, they come back around eventually, and it comes back, and they come back quicker. Even after you forget it, you learn it quicker the next time. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Prabhu, Ravi Shankar Prabhu. Yeah, what's that verse? It's the contact with the material objects. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga. Tukayonaya evate adyantavanta kaunteya. Nateshu ramate buddha. One who has intelligence doesn't take pleasure in contact of the senses with the sense objects, because that only leads to suffering, because those sources of pleasure have a beginning and they have an end. Or prakriti sthani karshati, because of the mind and senses, the material mind and senses, one is forced to struggle again and again with the material energy. The root might not be that. The root might be our envy of Krishna, our pride, our desire to enjoy independently. But that's what brings us into this material body. And once we're here, it is very difficult to get out. Unless you take shelter of a spiritual master, you know, absorb your mind in the lotus feet, the saffron dust of the lotus feet of Krishna, then it's very difficult to get out. We say like make the best of a bad bargain. We're in a pretty difficult situation. We're basically in prison. Like this is, this world, material world is designed to keep us enjoying here. So unless we awaken that desire to get out by the mercy of a Vaishnava, then yeah. Alright, Hare Krishna. Thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Gurudev ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Gopinath ki jai. Tagore Premanandi.